Alright, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
Yo, what's going on, friends? How are you doing? How are you doing? And welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. As always, I do hope you're doing well, mate. Genuinely do hope that. And welcome back to Chelsea news. Some interesting stuff. We've signed a goalkeeping coach who's worked for Brighton historically. So we're keeping to the hits with that. But I did want to speak a little bit more on Petrovic, who's having an amazing season now, to Strasbourg, who look like they're challenging for Europe in Ligue 1 with Liam Rosenier and the likes of Andre Santos, who I do want to speak about as well, because apparently Bayern Munich are interested in him. And I was having a thought, right? Because obviously of late, Chelsea fans have understandably been very, very frustrated with, well, not all of them, but there's been certainly like a great deal of frustration with the Chelsea fan base. It's been very interesting to watch a lot of the older Chelsea fan base that have seen perhaps difficulties, in the 80s when we got relegated, and indeed before, like my old man and stuff like that. And I've got a few mates in their sort of 60s plus that I talk to about Chelsea. I've seen more difficult times. Perhaps they're a little bit more philosophical about how things are. And of course, I mean, I turned 36 in a couple of weeks, just under. People of my generation perhaps grew up in the 90s. Chelsea were good in the 90s, but in the noughties and 2010s, Chelsea were of course very, very good indeed under Abramovich. A lot of frustration there, and it's been a huge talking point. Of course, we've seen protests outside Stamford Bridge. I personally am a little bit more philosophical about it. I don't think the owners are just going to sell and disappear, but I do want success. That's paramount for me as a Chelsea fan. I suppose I'd be leaning more on the sort of changing the model kind of thing rather than expecting the owners to sell up. But anyway, it's been a huge talking point, and I was thinking there's been a lot of romanticizing about Roman Abramovich, and if of course you completely dissociate all the geopolitical, problematic elements of Abramovich, and I don't just mean, of course, the invasion of Ukraine. I mean the stuff that he couldn't get a visa. I mean, there was controversy in recent years before the sanctions. Of course, we Chelsea fans always took stick about him being an oligarch and stuff. But the truth is, you're a football fan, you want your team to win, and ultimately, Abramovich, he bought Chelsea. As much as sometimes maybe my moral compass is challenged, I don't think for a second Abramovich bought Chelsea as a sports washing exercise because he was Putin's mate. I just don't think that at all. I think Abramovich bought Chelsea because he loved football. He's a football fanatic, and he wanted to have a club in London. There was talk, so he bought Fulham or something. Do you know what I mean? And he bought Chelsea, and he had Chelsea as a project just because he wanted to win. And that, in isolation from the sporting lens, throughout that just sporting lens, is a blessing. We won the lottery, didn't we? We really did. We won the lottery. He didn't have Chelsea to make money, which, by the way, is an entirely unique situation, which will not happen again. And we just blessed it happened, and you can't expect to have that kind of ownership again, because not only will it not happen, because it was one of a kind, of course, the football landscape's changed with profit and sustainability rules. The club couldn't have been run the same way as it did under Abramovich. So I'm kind of philosophical in that way, in terms of really appreciating the time, but not being overly nostalgic and romanticizing it, expecting it to be like that again, because I just feel like I'll just put myself through needless pain. Do you know what I mean? So I was thinking about this, but I was thinking about the new consortium, Blue Co, and wondering if Abramovich approved, because I seem to remember he worked with Rain Group, and I've done a little bit of research, and he obviously did some statements, and I think he did. He gave the green light and the all clear for Todd Bowley's consortium to take over Chelsea, because obviously they had, if you remember, guys, Rain Group sold Chelsea under a few strict guidelines that it was incredibly unique. By the way, like and subscribe. It was an incredibly unique situation, and I want to get into that. And we're going to talk about that in today's videos, but I want to get through some housework quickly. So a few updates for you guys. Of course, on the channel, we'll always follow transfer news closely. Look, Romano's gone on his YouTube channel and he's sort of basically gone over a little bit more on the Joao Felix situation. Milan are going to change many things, and the feeling internally is that it's going to be complicated to continue with Joao Felix. It's not financial, but the first 40 days have been complicated with Joao at the club. Basically saying he's been bad and they don't want him to sign him. That's what complicated means, which is frustrating because if we don't want him, we're going to have to find a place for a landing spot for him. If you watch my content, I'm actually quite a fan of Joao Felix as a footballer, not necessarily to be definitely at Chelsea, but I do have a degree of sympathy from him, and that's probably because of George Mensch being his agent, just using him as a bargaining chip, throwing him around. Romano goes on to say the situation with Felix has not been what they at all expected. The situation is really complicated. They go complicated again. Bad performances. So now they go to negotiate with Chelsea, and it's not what they're planning to do. Yeah, so they're not going to get Joao Felix, basically. Yeah. Also, we've signed a goalkeeping coach who was the head of goalkeeping at the academy at Arsenal till now, or the end of last month, and now he's come to Chelsea as the assistant head of goalkeeping. So he's had a promotion. Of course, he's played. He's worked for Brighton between the years of 2012 and 2016. That was probably before this new Brighton project was in firm place, but still, of course, it's part of the meme, innit? He had to have worked for Brighton if he's coming to Chelsea right now. Look, lots of Chelsea fans have been like, why have we got Arsenal's academy goalkeeper and made him better? Truth is, Arsenal have had good, I know I can't speak for their academy, but their first team has been pretty darn good with Raya. Raya's seemingly just got better. I mean, the first team since Brentford. I don't really care. It's not a sexy signing, but whatever. It's news there. Before we speak about this Luka Abramovich thing, let's talk about Georgi Petrovic and Santos, the Strasbourg boys. First of all, reports suggesting that Bayern Munich are actually interested in Andre Santos, but Chelsea doesn't want to lose him. It doesn't surprise me at all that massive European clubs will be looking at Andre. When we signed him, he'd yet to have played in that Brazilian U20 tournament that he captained to a victory. I think he was one top goal scorer from midfield as well. So already, as soon as we'd signed him, his value went up before he'd even arrived at Chelsea. And of course he came, we couldn't get him the visa under Potter. He goes back to Brazil, then he plays that championship and then wins and then comes to Chelsea. He obviously has a bad 6 months at Forest, a very good 6 months at Strasbourg, and indeed a good year it looks like at Strasbourg, where they're looking to push for European spots. They're 7th, they're a few points clear of 8th, couple of 6th. Which has got to be a conference or something in Ligue 1, but they could push for Europa League, maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there. Very, very, very good season under Liam Rosenier at Strasbourg. And similarly, Georgi Petrovic, who in the game yesterday kept them in it. They got a 1-0 away win. Huge, important win. Everyone's sort of sharing around his statistics on social media. Very, very good. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's the guy that is good enough to be Chelsea's number one. I'm very mindful. I try not to be this guy that just says, oh, bring me, Mike Mignon, or bring me Diogo Costa, or just names. I just wanted us to have a good goalkeeper. I think it's so important. I do think, the 2 goalkeepers we're rotating currently, neither are good enough. That's my position. I may be wrong. I know a lot of people disagree with me. That's totally fine. Football is a game of opinions, innit? I think Georgi Petrovic is better than both of them, but I also see him as he is right now, a little bit of a placeholder, as he was last season. But at the same time, I do think he could probably get better. He's only 25, which for a goalkeeper isn't that old at all. So if he's trending positively upwards, then maybe by the time he's 26, 27, he's superb, he's worldly, he's good enough to be Chelsea goalkeeper. And of course, you've got Mike Penders, in the rearview mirror. Hopefully, they've got their bit high hopes for. So maybe Georgi Petrovic is good enough for Chelsea. Let me know what you think. Please leave your comments down below. Alright, so both the Strasbourg boys returning, hopefully indefinitely. I don't want to see Andre Santos go anywhere. So yes, let's talk a little bit more about the situation with the owners, because of course it is a huge talking point. Probably worth disclaiming, I've got no romantic affiliation with these guys. If you watch my content, you will know that my position has always been the same, that I am very lucid to where we are. I was very fearful of the alternatives in terms of ownership, the Ricketts, Pagliuca. I don't think, as much as I said earlier in the video, I do genuinely believe Roman Abramovich just loved Chelsea, loved football, and just wanted to buy a football club. There's been suggestions in certain literature and stuff that it's a soft power play in London for Putin. I don't believe that at all personally, but of course we see that all the time with states buying football clubs. It's sports washing essentially. I don't think Abramovich buying Chelsea is sports washing. It was literally, he loves football, he wants a London football club. That was it, okay? You can disagree with me if you want, but that's just what I think personally. So of course that is another big fear, that your football club could be utilised as a sports washing vessel. So what's left? What's left is Americans trying to maximise the revenues from Premier League football. So, of course, if Blueco disappeared, it would either be probably a Middle Eastern state, or it would be an American consortium, of which own Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, etc, etc, etc. That's what would come next. Maybe they wouldn't spend as much money, or they'd spend a little bit more carefully, you could say. Probably not buy loads of children, and yes, I, like many of you, do not believe the briefings that all these other clubs are necessarily scared of Chelsea's project. But that's how I look at football in this current landscape. It's not romantic, and I know we could all be nostalgic and just be like, oh, Chelsea, why couldn't we all just be a local club and we all live on the King's Road? And I could easily have gone that route with my family past. I grew up with my best friend, my old man, my best friend's old man being Chelsea fans, yada yada yada, being like, oh, it's our local club, live on the King's Road, and that's it, and that's the only people that can support Chelsea. It's not like that, is it? The football's not like that. It is what it is. You can tie yourself up in knots. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't protest when they're unhappy. I think that's actually really important. To be honest, it's nice to see. I was really kind of proud as a Chelsea fan when there was the protests against the Super League, and Chelsea was right in the headlights, or the headlines of that, because of course all the clubs started withdrawing as Chelsea were protesting outside Stamford Bridge. That was a huge win for fans, not just Chelsea fans, but football fans as a whole. And I'd like to see, you exercising their voice again against, it was a little bit jumbled the other day, and it wasn't the biggest group, but it was a group. It was an early indication of unhappiness, which is good, because I might be sounding a little bit apathetic, which I in some degrees I am, but I don't want to come across that. And also there's a danger there, because if Chelsea fans don't express their concern and, let their voices be heard, then you basically think, all right, well, these guys are a bunch of walkovers, and then things get worse and worse and worse. So I do want to think it's really important. I do want to say I think it's really important. But I did want to go back, right? So, and just think, because we need to remember how we got here, yeah? And yes, you can be unhappy with things are going, and I am unhappy with certain things. I want things to be tweaked. I want more experience. I don't think, personally, we're going to stop hearing these teenagers being signed. I think that's just part of the business model to generate revenue for the club, which is boring and cynical, but it is what it is. I want more seniority in the lineup. I want Chelsea to learn to be winners again as a culture, all that kind of important stuff. But, how did we get here? Things weren't going rosy with Abramovich, generally, were they? I mean, he wasn't allowed to go into the UK. He'd stopped the stadium development plans, I think probably because he wasn't allowed to work in England, etc. There was different kinds of controversies even prior to that. It wasn't all rosy. We weren't seeing Roman in England at Stamford Bridge anymore, right? That was the problem. And of course there was the sanctions. He says he's going to sell Chelsea really early on, or he says he's going to give it to the board. What was he said, a Chelsea organisation that was Emma Hayes was a part of, and they weren't told. It was all a bit peculiar and very fast. Basically, he knew what was coming, and then he says, look, it's up for sale. He does the gracious thing. He wipes away all debt and basically reminds everyone that, actually, no, I do love football. I love Chelsea, and that's why I bought Chelsea. But he worked. I was in my head, I was like, did he work with Rain Group to sell Chelsea? Was he part of it? And yes, by all accounts, he was. So Reuters, Sportigo, multiple publications confirming that Abramovich is working with Rain Group to solicit offers. An AI overview, of course, on Google would say, if you ask, did Abramovich work with Rain Group? It says, yes, Roman Abramovich worked with the Rain Group to sell Chelsea. Yes, and they were instructed, of course, to sell Chelsea under loads of strict conditions, that, certain money would be invested, that the women's team had to continue investment into the women's team of success. By the way, out of all the concerns we've had, there's no concerns with the women's team. They're literally better than ever. They're unbeaten. They're buying all the superstars in the world. Sonia Bombastor has been an absolute huge success. Of course, the academy is having mixed results, but they are certainly still investing heavily into the academy and bringing in a whole, after Neil Bath, they've brought in what what were deemed, forgive me if I'm incorrect here, I don't follow academy football that well, but, you know, best in class in terms of very good coaches. And of course, Abramovich, once Chelsea was sold, he made a statement, of course. It's been nearly 3 months since I announced my intention to sell Chelsea Football Club. During this time, the team has worked hard to find the right custodian for Chelsea Football Club that will be best positioned to lead the club into its next chapter. The ownership of this club comes with great responsibility. Since I came to Chelsea nearly 20 years ago, I've witnessed firsthand what this club can achieve. My goal is to ensure the next owner has a mindset, and this is obviously lots of Chelsea fans will contest this for the men's team, that will enable success for the men's team. Women's team, I mean, yes, the women's team has been incredible, and continue developing other key aspects of the club, such as the academy and the foundation, which has continued, obviously. I'm pleased this search has now come to a successful conclusion. Right, as I hand over it to the new custodians, I wish them all the best, and you know, he says nice stuff. He worked with Rain Group, he analysed the potential buyers, and of course, you know, he's not going to say, I understand, he's not going to say, and these guys are total mugs, we're screwed. He's not going to say that, but he was involved, and I think it's important because there's a lot of anger, and I get it, we just want to win football matches and feel good again, but people don't know where to point their anger, it would seem. So let's bring on home. Eventually, something's got to give. One thing's for sure, that no matter what your position on, everyone's aligned on the same thing. Chelsea's a really, really big, important club in the Premier League, in England, in Europe. Yeah. Prime real estate on the Fulham Road. It's just an amazing football club to own, right? It's got prestigious history in Europe. That goes back from the 90s, even before that. And it needs to be good, Chelsea. Chelsea can't become a fallen giant, and the standards need to be upheld. And I want to be clear. I don't want to criticize people for singing the name of Roman Abramovich if you want to, because it's not even like, I don't think it's Chelsea fans demanding or expecting he just comes back out of nowhere. I think it's more of like a sort of defiant chant that represents what they were in the good times, you know. It's like people like criticizing those Chelsea fans in the protests singing about Jose Mourinho. I think most of them aren't asking for Jose Mourinho to come back and manage Chelsea. It's more of like an indicator of the time of standards. Yeah. So I think when you hear the names Abramovich and Mourinho, that's what it represents personally. Or for a lot of people, maybe there are some Chelsea fans that would imagine a reality where Abramovich could just appear again, or Mourinho would come back and just, I don't know, be Mourinho of 20 years ago. But for me personally, I think it's important to keep up the pressure, apply the pressure. You know, I think protests are good. I just think efforts need to be aligned in the appropriate way to ensure that, you know, change will be made. Because while you're just sort of like, you know, shouting at clouds or whatever, yeah, man, look, we all want the same thing, don't we? We all want the same thing. We want Chelsea to win again, but it's not even just about winning. It's about looking like they're knowing what they're doing, finding a team they can get behind. Because that's another thing. Chelsea fans have been incredibly patient over these 3-year period, but it's seeing a team that you can get behind. So senior characters, not just Reece James going to clap the away fans by himself or getting close, and the others, you know, the other kids are scared of the away fans after a loss. Having a team of character again. So when you've got a team that you can connect and bond with, then you can take losses more. That's really what it is, isn't it? It's cultivating an emotive connection with the fans. Again, that's really, really important. But of course, success as well. Alright then, long video. When I start thinking about things like that, you know, I feel like I would want to talk about it in a video, you know, in the same way I'd like to just talk about football in a pub with someone. Do you know what I mean? I can do all the transfer news and stuff I want sometimes, but sometimes it's just nice to talk about things that I think and respectfully, you know, exchange ideas with other football fans. So let me know what you think, guys. Thanks as always for joining me. Another long video, but you know, I know some of you guys prefer short form, but quite like doing longer videos. I'm sorry. So let me know what you think. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you back here soon, hopefully. Peace.